We have come to assume that we are equipped with sensory perceptions by which it is possible for us to have a reasonably complete awareness of the world outside of ourselves. We know that this awareness has some limitation. We realize that beyond a certain distance, our vision fails, and sounds too far away cannot be distinctly heard. We also realize that our sensory perceptions may be variously restricted. It is quite possible for the individual to lose keenness of sight or acuteness of hearing, or have any of the sensory perceptions impaired. It has not occurred to us, generally speaking, however, to take the possibility into consideration that the sensory faculties of man are also in a process of evolution, like all parts of his nature. Therefore, that in the course of time, all of these faculties may be more acute, more complete, more adequate than they are at the present time. All things granted, considered, however, we live as though these faculties gave us a full and reliable report on the environment in which we exist. We do not like to believe that perhaps there is a whole world of things beyond our sensory perception, or outside of our ability to understand. There is one simple way, however, that we can demonstrate this to ourselves and to almost anyone's satisfaction. We live on a part of this planet which we call dry land. We are surrounded by oceans. The average person has no hope of ever actually seeing below the surface of these oceans. Perhaps if he's a keen swimmer, he may be able to see 25 or 50 or 100 feet below the surface of the water. Or with certain scientific equipment, he may be able to descend into some of the deeper places. But what we do not realize, any of us really, is that the world beneath the surface of the sea is far more complex than the one on which we dwell as dry land. There are more forms of life in the ocean than there are on the land. The population of the seas is greater than the population of the earth. Yet most of the creatures in this vast, unknown, dim, or dark region we know nothing about whatever. Yet they are here, they are alive, they are fulfilling their patterns of life. They are very close to us, but hopelessly separated because of the difference in constitutions and the difference of the necessary elements in which these two forms of life in general have to dwell. So we can say quite honestly that we will never, certainly in this life, see even a half of the creation which we call the physical earth. Part of it will be explored 100 years from now, part of it probably 10,000 years from now. But still there will always be things that we cannot see, mysteries that we cannot immediately solve, spaces that our sensory perceptions will not penetrate. We also know that our very sensory structure has boundaries, has natural and inevitable restrictions upon the function of these faculties. We know beyond doubt that there are sounds that we cannot hear. There are odors that we cannot smell. It is perfectly possible for us to contract or make devices by means of which we can call animals, because they can hear sounds that we cannot hear. We therefore know that even humble creatures, rabbits and squirrels, are probably hearing sounds that we will never be able to experience. In the same way, sight is a most restricted instrument of penetration. It becomes practically useless at night. We have only a very limited ability to actually see, but we have come to adjust ourselves to the limitations of our faculties, and gradually, like a half-blind person, we grow accustomed to the twilight in which we live and are not even concerned whether there be more light elsewhere or not. Distances, of course, also contribute to this mystery. For some things are so far away, like other planets and stars, that we can form with our faculties no adequate comprehension of their natures and structures. We have invented all kinds of scientific instruments to assist us, to support us, to intensify sounds and colors, odors, so that they may be more quickly sensed by us. But even these instruments are utterly inadequate and must always be. The only answer that we can really face with a certain amount of integrity is to admit that we are limited creatures, and that in comparison to our own limitations, we are living in an almost unlimited universe. That there are many, many types of life that are perfectly real and valid, which we cannot experience. Now, this presents a number of interesting problems, and our ancient forebears thought about these mysteries considerably. One thing that we all experience is the appearance of certain forms or circumstances within the area of our comprehension from some source outside of this area. Things seem to happen. Situations arise. And it seems as though invisible hands are moving the elements of some gigantic chess game. We are aware constantly that from the unseen there are flowing forces which are of importance to us within the narrow range of our own existence. We wonder sometimes to what degree these invisible factors influence or even overshadow our conduct here. Our most ancient ancestors considered that the invisible atmosphere around us was populated with creatures, and these creatures became so real to these older peoples that we could never possibly have convinced them that such beings were figments of imagination. The Greeks have populated the whole universe with living beings which men cannot see. Every fountain had its nymph, every grove its dryad or hamadryad. The mountains and the valleys, the clouds, all things were alive with life. And the Romans went so far as to have their kitchen gods that lived under the hearth. They had spirits for everything, and so did the old Chinese peoples. In other words, the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians and most Oriental nations recognized a populous universe filled with beings and forms of life that we cannot normally perceive.